Hey, I'm Lauren. I have got Tourette's, if that one's not obvious already. We call her Trish. Haha, Patricia. Because she tends to get me in trouble quite a lot. Fuck you. Non-disabled people shouldn't have a say in what happens to disabled people.
Today's guest, Lauren Perry, is a disability advocate who has a number of disabilities which include Tourette's, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and POTS, to name a few. It was a great conversation to have with Lauren, particularly surrounding what it's like to travel with a disability and some of the challenges that come along with Tourette's. I really do hope you enjoy this episode, so please sit back, relax and enjoy. Welcome to the Not Quite Podcast. I'm Charlie Randall. Let's get ready to rewrite the rulebook. Welcome back to the Not Quite Pod. Today we've got Lauren with us. Lauren, do you just want to quickly introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are and a bit about yourself?
Hey, I'm Lauren. If you know me, you might know me as A Ticker's Guide to Life on social media. I basically have a range of chronic illnesses and disabilities, and yeah, I've got a social media account and disability group in Brighton.
Nice. Awesome. So tell me a bit more about your different conditions, how they affect you sort of day to day, and what sort of involved, just to give a bit of insight to those who are listening to like what a day to day is for you.
I have got Tourette's, if that one's not obvious already. We call her Trish, just to sort of differentiate. Haha, Patricia. Just to sort of differentiate what's me and what is Trish, because she tends to get me in trouble quite a lot if I don't do that. I've also got a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which means my joints like to pop out quite a lot, and I pass out quite a lot, which is kind of like the POTS that comes with the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome you might have heard before. There's loads of other comorbidities that kind of come with that, so I get really tired, all sorts. I've also got a fun condition called hemiplegic migraines, which means every now and then I get paralysed, which is really fun. Not. Haha, you idiot. But essentially, because of all of that, I use a bright pink wheelchair to get around, because my thoughts are, if people are going to look, it may as well be because your wheelchair's bright pink. I'm a bit of a wheelchair geek, must admit, so I've got all the free wheels and alberifics adaptations and everything you can think of, and in a dream world I'd have 10 wheelchairs, but I don't know who's paying for that.
I'm with you there. I'm right with you there. It's interesting. You actually are. I had another guest with Ehlers-Danlos. I can't even say it. Ehlers-Danlos.
No, it's so hard to say.
You know what I. Anyway, you guys know what I meant.
Yes, it's so fine.
Yeah, I had another guest, Damien, who's also got EDS.
Oh yeah.
And interestingly, he's obsessed with pink wheelchairs. So is it a thing?
I don't know. Well, actually, I know someone else that's got a bright pink wheelchair and they've got EDS. So what I actually did is I went for a white wheelchair, and then I got like pink pushroom covers and pink spokes and pink like frame guards, because my thoughts were like, what if one day I don't like pink anymore, and that would be really embarrassing, because I've just spent like however much money on a wheelchair, and then what if I want it to be blue? So now I can like mix and match it to make it match my style or whatever. But
that is the worst thing with wheelchairs. I've just had my one custom made.
Oh yeah, bougie mother.
There was no, it's fine. Actually, it was brilliant. The hardest thing was picking the colours. I spent so long deciphering the colours because I was like, I am stuck in this for like the next 5-10 years,
and it's like
I need to get this right.
Your, like, outfits as well. So it's like, I love my bright pink, but like some days, like I can't wear red ever, because red and pink, no, in my opinion anyway. If you wear red and pink, I'm sure that looks amazing, but like together for me, that does not look good. And also, like, what if you wanted to, like, I don't know, wear blue one day, and then it'd be like nice if I had a blue wheelchair. So when I'm rich, I'm gonna have all my chairs lined up, my all-terrain wheelchair and everything, and it's gonna be amazing. But yeah, no, I totally hear you on that. And a sparkly pink is a thing as well. Did you know that?
Sparkly pink wheelchair. Oh wow!
Glitter, so you can get sparkly pink. Ooh. Love that.
As I say, don't tell Damien. He will be all over that. This guy, I love him to bits, but he's got bright pink wheelchair and insists on wearing bright pink trainers wherever he goes.
I love that. Is that like the bright pink laces, like to match?
Yep.
Yeah, love that so much.
So you and Damien would get on like a house on fire.
It's so funny. Like, I actually like blue, but for some reason, like, I just love the pink chair. I don't know.
Is it because it's a statement thing? Because like when we were talking, I was talking to Damien about it, and I'm, to be fair, I'm kind of similar with like my fashion sense of, look, people are going to stare at me anyway, so
Right.
why not give them something to stare at?
Exactly. Like people are always complimenting my wheelchair, and I love that. Where it's like, haha, old ladies. When you've got like the middle-aged women staring at you because you're in a wheelchair, I'm always thinking, are they staring at me because I'm in a wheelchair, or are they staring at me because they've never seen a bright pink wheelchair before? And I like to just leave that question as like an open question kind of thing. So yeah, that's my thought.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's often it's a real thing when it comes to young people and disabilities, like particularly because there's that common misconception that we get everything given to us, and there's also a common misconception that every disabled person is an old lady or an old man.
Exactly. I think when people think of disability, like they really don't think of me, and it's like when I was younger, I really, really struggled with people looking at me. Like that was before I was even like disabled. I mean, I can kind of go on to that a bit, but in the sense of like I wasn't born with a disability as such, even though it kind of technically was because it's a genetic condition. My disability didn't affect me as a like young child, and I really struggled with sort of like mental health side of things. But the minute I sort of had Tourette's and like physical like conditions, it really meant overnight people were looking at me straight away. So to have a bright pink wheelchair, it was like, right, we're going to be confident with this. People are going to be looking at us. We're getting a bright pink wheelchair and we're going for it. I think it's kind of like the only way to do it. It's like, grab it by the balls and go with it kind of thing.
Yeah. On that note, like, interestingly, one of the questions that popped into my head was, what advice would you give to like a younger person that's not necessarily at that stage in their life where they are more confident with their disability and more like, do you know what, fuck it, let's just roll with it and see where we go with this, mind the pun. But it's what advice would you give?
It's interesting you say that, actually, because one like thought always pops into mind about like Tourette. So I was so self-conscious of it. Like I always used to like go out the room, like tick. I'd have like massive like tick attacks at the end of the day. So if you suppress your tics, which is like holding in your tics, you can't get rid of me. If you hold in your tics, they're gonna come out at some point.
Yeah.
So essentially what I would do is hold them all in, and then they'd all come out, and it'd be really painful and cause me loads of problems. So one day I was in the swimming pool, as you do, and I said to my friend, oh, can you see that? And she had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, no, look, can you see that? She had no idea what I was talking about. And I was ticking away like mad, and she was like, why are you ticking so much? And I literally could not stop ticking. And then on the other side of the pool, there was someone else that was ticking loads. And she was literally like, I don't get it. And so there was two of us in the pool that were both ticking loads. Both of us obviously got a tic disorder or Tourette's. And no one else in the pool noticed at all, apart from the two of us, because we were the only two that were noticed. And it kind of made me realise from that day that no one cares. Like, no one realises. Yeah. You're the only one that notices, or someone else with the same condition. And then it kind of means that you're actually in this cool little, like, we're in the cool minority, and no one actually is part of that. It was kind of quite nice to think, my housemate that's with me every single day didn't know someone else with Tourette's, then,
Yeah. It's that whole thing, like you say, of that whole thing of like that mutual nod between anyone that's disabled and anyone else that's there's kind of that like
we got this.
Yeah, and then you see someone with the exact same condition. It's like, I'm with you. I see you.
It's just like, it was like our advice is like, find your people, and like people are not like, people are so obsessed with themselves that they don't notice each other. So it's just important to find people that do accept you, and don't worry about anyone that doesn't. Like, move out the way. I know where my person is. They're the one with Tourette's on the other side of the pool. We can see each other. Do you know what I mean? So.
That was the one piece of advice I wish I could have given my younger self, particularly when it came to school, was like, not, because I think everyone goes into school, like particularly secondary school, go into year 7 and you think, oh yeah, I want to be like, I want to get in with the popular crew, I want to really like get in with that lot. Yeah. Whereas I actually found that once I kind of, basically, that is very true, Trish. It's that whole thing of like finding your people, as you say. Like, once I kind of gave up on that idea and actually just looked at who I actually liked, I kind of found my people and was like, actually,
Absolutely.
this isn't as stressful.
It's quite funny now as well, sort of looking back. I mean, I didn't have that experience of like being sort of a disabled person growing up, so I can't really relate to that, and I can imagine that that must have been really difficult. But from the perspective of like looking back, it's like all young people just want to fit in, and it's kind of like whether you're a disabled person or an able-bodied person, non-disabled person, you just want to fit in. So kind of looking back now, some of my favourite people in school, like their personalities weren't the popular kids or whatever they are. Some of the coolest people I know now, probably I wouldn't have been friends with in school because they wouldn't have been considered cool. Whereas actually, if I'm going to go down to the pub, I could probably sit there and out for hours and have conversations with them. Whereas in school, they were probably so boring. They'd just sit there and talk about other people, not be interesting. Now we're probably all the neurodiverse people sat together. Do you know what I mean? Being interesting.
Yeah.
So
I always relate back to like with my friendship group. If you saw us out and about, it just looks like a clusterfuck of people. Like it's like, what the fuck happened here? Like
all like the little outskirts.
Yeah, basically it was like, right, we'll grab someone from this group, we'll grab someone from this group, and then we'll grab someone from this group, and we'll just smash them together.
Yeah, but that's why it works. Like personalities are so interesting. Like, who wants to just be sat there and be boring? Like,
exactly.
I want to wheel there.
That's pretty accurate as well. What was going to say? What was so on that note? You mentioned obviously you didn't grow up necessarily identifying as disabled at the time. What was growing up like for you? Was it fairly sort of standard?
Well,
or
it's quite interesting actually. So throughout like my whole like high school period, I had like panic disorder and like depressive disorder and all of that sort of stuff and agoraphobia. So I actually didn't really like leave my house much at all. Which is like kind of crazy to think about now because I'm like so far from that. And I think when people look at me now, I don't know, but people would always sort of think like bright pink wheelchair, like she's got Tourette, she's always shouting, like loudest in the room. Whereas like back then I was like, close the door, stay in my bedroom, I don't like people, and I'm still very much like, I like, what's the word? Like I recharge in my own time, but like back then it was literally like I would have a panic attack if I went out in public. I had a panic attack if I was walking to school, if it was busy in exams, like restaurants, like literally anything. Underground, the London Underground, I had to do a lot of like exposure therapy. Like it was intense. It was a lot. Hindsight, it was probably because I've got POTS and my heart rate was too high and there was a lot of medical stuff going on. But it's really interesting to sort of see how the mental health side of things was dealt with then and sort of see that actually a lot of people were probably going through similar things, maybe not to that extent, but as you're older you can sort of deal with it a bit better.
And I think there's that more awareness of it as well. Like if you've gone through something like, once you go through something like that, you have so much more awareness of it in other people.
Definitely.
Like I went for a really shitty time when I left. When I left school, I've talked about it before on the podcast. So I had a really shitty time in my first job. So like that had a huge impact. And then once I got through that, I was like, oh my God, like there are people everywhere that go through this. And it's that horrible thing of, unless you've gone through it, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. It's pretty much what I've come to the conclusion with, because you always get people like, oh, well, why are you upset? Or like, why is this bothering you so much? And you're like, you honestly don't. Unless you've done it, you can't explain it.
Then it's like sometimes you kind of want to like fix it for people. Like it's kind of like, you know, it's like, you know, I had like therapy for so long as a kid. It's kind of like, I know what will help you, but you need to go through that journey to fix it yourself. But I kind of just wanted, like, I really want to help like young kids that are going through it, but also like sometimes it just is a matter of age thing, you know, like if you just go through it, you'll come out the other side. And like, here I am, my bright pink wheelchair, and people might look at me now and be like, oh my God, it's so sad she uses a wheelchair, but like really I'm the happiest I've ever been. So yeah, it might be sad that I'm disabled, but like I'm so happy I'm disabled because it means that my mental health's like so much better. I've met amazing people, you know, so it's interesting.
That is a point that I always bring up on this podcast, and that is like, people always ask me like, would you hand your disability back? And I'm like, I hate to burst your bubble because everyone thinks you turn around and be like, God, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd actually turn around and argue possibly not, because I wouldn't have the life that I know now. I don't know any different.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have met half the people I do know now.
Absolutely.
Because I wouldn't be doing what I am doing now. And then also I'm like, I'm so much, I feel like, obviously I wouldn't know, but I feel like I'm so much more socially rounded
Oh my God.
now
Definitely.
than I would be if I was not.
Definitely. Like, I don't know, like obviously everyone has like down days where they're just like I know I have carers full time and like I've just got a WAV and I would love to have a Lamborghini. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'd love to just be able to work a full time job. Like, there's so many things I'd love to be able to do, but like, I don't have horrible people in my life. Like, the people I have in my life, I really cherish, and like they appreciate my like friendships. I don't know, like when I like eventually will travel on holiday, like I will appreciate that holiday because like you know it'll take all my energy to get there, whereas like some people really take things for granted, and like I just think with a disability, like you really appreciate absolutely everything. And definitely. Yeah, I don't know, like even like my Tourette's, I don't think I'd be anywhere near as like confident in like speaking. Like I never would have ever done anything like this in the past, whereas now like I shout all sorts of embarrassing things out loud, so kind of got to get used to talking in public, you know.
Not to be that like inspiration able-bodied porn shit that people do, but also I'm like, if someone could do it with Tourette's, what the fuck are you moaning about, Karen?
Yeah,
you have nothing. Like,
do you know what I mean? Like when I tell you, like I hated, like if I would always think people were looking at me all the time, and then like overnight it was like, hey, you've got Tourette's now, and it's like, you know, so embarrassing sitting there and being shouted, like, you know, if you can think of the most embarrassing thing like that could have ever happened to you, I will shout it out in public. Like there are no boundaries. People can't tell me secrets because
I was gonna say that might.
It's so bad. Like, but it just means that like life is so funny. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, get
as well. You must come out with so many good one-liners that are so unintentional, but literally must be just fantastic.
It's amazing. Like we always say Trish is funny. I don't know whether I'm funny, but Trish is funny. She's really funny. Like I can't even think of things like that she does. Even like when people were staring at me like in my wheelchair, like Trish will just like shout in their face, like roar at them, or like make like a little comment, or like every year like everyone knows their Christmas presents because Trish has told them. Like it's just like everything. It's just so funny. Ha ha, bitch. Just so many things. So funny.
I was going to ask because it's a really random thought, and forgive me if you're like, shut up, Johnny, don't know what you're talking about. But basically, I always wonder, like, so for you when you have a tick, can you? Is it that sort of thing where you can feel it coming, and you're like, oh God, no, not now.
So, you know when you like really need to sneeze, it's literally like, so it's called a premonitory urge. So it's just before you're about to sneeze, you're like, it's like that bit, and I can feel it tingling up one arm and like up the side of my face, or like the other feeling, like I just hey up, you dickhead. I describe a tick attack like hiccups, where it's just you can't control it. Or like literally just sneezing or hiccups.
To be fair, I relate to it quite a bit because there's one thing that I can't figure out like why it happens, but basically I have this thing where I have that very similar sensation, so I can feel it coming, and then basically, you know, that whole thing of like someone says, oh, someone's walked over my grave. Imagine that just 12 times more intense. And the worst thing is it happens to me at the worst times. I'll be in a really deep conversation with a friend and I'm like, oh shit, this is not going to happen now. Like I was talking to my manager the other day and it happened and I'm going, no. Oh.
It's so interesting though, because so many people have tics. So I don't know how true this statistic is, but apparently it's just as common as autism. Don't know how like real that like statistic is, but I'm pretty sure it's a Tourette's action thing. And like I love to spot tics in other people. That's like something I really enjoy. So like my mum will sit there and like twiddle her thumbs, and that's a tic. Or like when people are nervous, like they'll like play with their hair or their jumper. My like friend does this all the time, like with her nose as she wiggles it, and I'll be like, "You're ticking," and like people just don't notice. But obviously the verbal ones are a little bit different to me.
A bit more out there.
So one of my favourite I say favourite, this is so bad, it's so morbid, but I had a really funny verbal one. It was like the height of lockdown, and it was at my grandpa's funeral. You can only imagine.
Oh,
and they were bringing his coffin out. It's so funny. And there was like only like 8 or 9 of us at the funeral because it was like height of lockdown.
COVID,
and like they were bringing like the coffin, and Trisha went, smells like death. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so everyone's like sobbing, crying, and I'm just there like literally could not stop laughing. I was like, sorry, I know it's not the time, but yeah, so that's sort of thing we get.
Really random question, but on that note, like, does like your emotional state have any impact on tics in terms of like, can you switch straight from like being bawling your eyes out to having a verbal tic?
Definitely. So when I'm really, really angry, my tics get really like aggressive, but then they really hurt my neck, and obviously because of my EDS that makes it really bad. So like there's times where it's like not funny and like that will be really painful, but then when I'm like really anxious and it's really quiet, then it's like it's kind of like the naughty kid in school. It's like, now's my time to play up, like let's go.
There's an urge that you're like, oh, I need to feel the silence.
But then if I'm really relaxed and the lavender oil's out and I'm chill and they're not so bad. Fuck you. I've only just started swearing recently, which is kind of annoying.
Oh really?
Yeah, only 10% of people with Tourette's swear, which is fun. And now,
which is a really interesting point to bring up, because often when people think of Tourette's, you automatically think of the swearing element to it. Like you don't. I think a lot of people's exposure to tics was the most exposure I think tics has ever seen on media is Pete from Big Brother. And I bet you're so sick of people going, oh, you're like Pete from Big Brother. Exactly. Fuck off.
Yeah. It's like, you always get the Little Britain reference when you stand up from your wheelchair, and then they're exactly the same with the Tourette's, and it's like, haha, actually. And when people ask, oh, do you swear? I'm always like, no. Even though I have started swearing now, I'm always like, no, I don't swear. But it's strange.
But I saw on your story the other day that you're actually due to travel to Amsterdam, and that unfortunately didn't happen. Was that due to health concerns?
Well, no. Well, it's just so much planning to like go away.
I feel you.
So like we were planning to go away, and we were like, like this will be great, and then like I have to pay for the cost of me and then my carer, so that's already double the cost. And then they were charging more for an accessible room than for an like ambulatory room. Is that what they're called? Non-disabled person's room.
Non-disabled room, average room, whatever you want to call it.
More for a disabled person's room than for a non-disabled person's room.
Yeah.
Which is actually legal, but they were doing it anyway. And it was like 3 times more. Wow. So then that was like double the cost of the holiday plus 3 times more times for the room. So then I'm already at that much more. Then travel insurance. And then we were only going to have like 1.5 full days in Amsterdam. And knowing my health, that would have been the one day that I'm ill. Because I need like 2 days to recover from a journey. So we were like, is it worth it? Probably not. Oh well, we'll go away another time.
Oh, mate.
And then it's like flying with a wheelchair as well. Like, Have you ever flown with a wheelchair?
Yes, I must admit, touch wood, 1,500. Yeah, 150 times. But basically, I have travelled and been very lucky that every time I have travelled, my wheelchair has arrived in one piece. Admittedly, there's been a couple of new scuffs that have arrived, but I'll take that over it being mangled to 100 different pieces. So I've been very lucky. I know a load of other creators have put out that they've had really negative experiences.
Scary.
So
see them as well.
Overall, I've had quite a positive experience. Obviously, I've had problems with like hotels and stuff, trying to book the accessible room and them not like not booking the right room.
Yeah,
That was
that's weird.
frustrating. And
do you have any
yeah,
tips
so that
out of interest? Because I'm looking to go to
tips
the Bahamas. I know that sounds crazy.
Tips, I would say, as I know you are, I use any gadgets that you use and are going to help you on that trip. Take them, make the airline take them. Like, don't take any prisoners with that. I know, obviously, there's the added concern of the equipment not making it in one piece. There are some availabilities of like some insurances that you can buy. So that's the other thing to look into. Like, I've now privately insured my front wheel attachment and my wheelchair, which covers a 90-day worldwide travel.
That's cool.
So as much as it doesn't help you in the instance of like if you arrive and your chair's mangled, at least when you get home you know that you're going to be able to sort it out. That was my main reasoning.
It's funny because like I'm such a go big or go home, and I'm like, if I'm gonna go on holiday, I may as well go to the Bahamas, because if my wheelchair breaks and I'm in the Bahamas, I'll cry about it in the Bahamas rather than crying about it in France. Like, I love France, but I'd probably be really upset. Whereas if I'm in the Bahamas, at least I'm like in the Bahamas, you know?
Yeah, I completely get it. I think as well, like from what I've seen, it seems to be, and it's wrong, completely wrong. I think the main damages with wheelchairs and stuff tends to happen with electric wheelchairs because people just don't know how to handle them. But then I'm also like, use your fucking brain, like
literally. So I've created these like signs with like pictures of me looking really sad, and I've written like, please don't break my wheelchair, because that means my legs will be broken for 6 months, and I can't. Like, it's so funny. But yeah. Scary.
So, but in terms of other tips, like if you were to go to Amsterdam, the interesting thing is another creator, Carrie, she goes to Amsterdam quite a lot. Got the same condition as me, is a wheelchair user. She loved it, but when I went, I found Amsterdam really challenging in terms of finding accessible toilets, because a lot of restaurants and stuff are downstairs, which isn't too bad if you're like going in springtime or summertime. There's a lot of outside seating. But I actually had to resort to, which is fine once I figured it out, that if you go into a 5-star hotel and go, can I use your toilet? They don't have any problem with it. And they tend to have disabled toilets, but there's not really public disabled toilets available,
that's
which
difficult,
sucks.
Yeah.
Sweet
talking
and also,
people.
That was a lot of it. But then interestingly, like policemen out there were really friendly. It was really strange.
I feel like they're all just really friendly.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the thing.
Yeah, I mean the Dutch in general. The Dutch are very friendly. They're very direct but very friendly. But yeah, I think that would be my advice for Amsterdam is like book if you want to do stuff, book it. Like I think that was my mistake. I'm quite impulse, so I'm like, I don't want to book too much.
I went like years ago, but I hired like all my mobility equipment, so I was just like a mess. My body hated me. Because do you know what I mean? And it's like you weigh up whether it's worth it then. Do you know what I mean? They had an amazing like wheelchair accessible bike thing though that was really cool. But then it was like, I don't know. I really want to do the tulip fields, so I feel like I do need my own chair for that.
There is also the public transport there is fairly accessible. Like it's fairly good access wise. Also, I won't go on about it too much on here, but there is a person, I've got a friend of mine who is Dutch and is and has chronic illness and is a ambulatory wheelchair user, so she's got a lot more awareness of things that are going on there. So if you do want to know, I can point you in her direction.
Thank you, definitely.
But love that. But travel, on that note, travel as a wheelchair user is just a ball ache. I think the only other thing that I have tested recently is like that whole, because as you say, although illegal, a number of properties will charge you extra for the accessible rooms. However, I have tested, not foolproof, but I have tested that you can sometimes arrive and have a normal, quote unquote, normal room booked, and then go, have you got an accessible room that I can use? Is it available? And they'll tend to go, yeah, okay, we'll swap you over, no problem.
My PA is quite good at doing the whole like, oh, poor disabled girl, like, do you know what I mean? Which we shouldn't have to do, but like sometimes you have to, like, but even like we have the problem of like you book an accessible room, you turn up and you can't actually even get your wheelchair through the door, so do you know what I mean? Or like we booked this accessible spa experience and we were so excited, and it was like, I have this thing called Trish's birthday, which is like the anniversary of my Tourette's, because I like to celebrate medical anniversaries a bit more positive than like feeling sorry for myself, lol.
Makes sense.
And so we booked like a nice trip away to a spa, and then we got there and like the lift down to the spa was broken, obviously, and then the lift from the spa changing rooms down to like the pool was also broken, lol. And then like the tap in our room was broken, and they didn't have like the pool cords, like everything was just a mess, and we were like, should we just stay home next time? Maybe we should. And I was like thinking about like traveling abroad for the first time, because I didn't have care for like so long, and now I've finally got care, and I'm like, it's just like the thought of taking my chair on a plane.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I think overall, I think there are definitely things that can improve. I think overall, you do tend to get quite a good experience. I think it really unfortunately, it's just luck of the draw.
Yeah, definitely.
And that is the hardest thing. But
risk it for a biscuit, bitches.
Basically, it is risk it for a biscuit. To be fair, Trish, it is pretty much, risk it for like. There is definitely like an element of like watching, like your heart sinking as your wheelchair goes into the hold, and you're like, is that going to arrive in one piece? I don't know.
I think especially because like, I mean, last year I literally had no carers, and my wheelchair was broken for 6 months. So it's like I've just got my wheelchair back, and I'm like, woohoo, I can go travelling with it, and I've got carers. But then in the back of my mind, I'm like, if they break your wheelchair, you're going to be miserable. Yeah. But then also it's like, you can't really live your life in fear, can you? Like, imagine a non-disabled person didn't go on holiday because they were worried that the plane was going to crash, or they were worried that their luggage was going to get lost, or, you know, so.
Yeah. There's a famous saying, and as much as I'm like, if only it was that simple.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's only my mum. She's not a famous philosopher, don't worry. My mum always says, worry about it when it happens. Exactly. That is my mum's like favourite saying. And I'm like, I get that, but then I'm also a worrier, so this is not going to happen.
No. To be honest, I'm just such a planner. Like, that's the only thing you can't plan for, your chair breaking. So, just got to play it by ear.
Exactly. You just got to roll with it. And like, as I say, for me personally, taking my front wheel attachment, my Firefly, away with me has been absolutely fucking game changing. It has been so much, giving me so much freedom.
Yeah.
Especially like public, like realistically, finding I can get Gina either an electric scooter or a bike.
Yeah.
Me and Gina don't need public transport. I can just fucking zip.
Do you find it's great. Like you forget, like you don't know what's a normal amount of walking. Like I'll be like, because obviously I've got my joystick, I'll be like wheeling along, and I'll like say to whoever's with me, like, have we been like going for ages, or like, are your legs okay? Like, I don't know what's normal. Like I'll be going around like town, and I'll be like, yeah, we can walk there, we can walk back, like, and I've changed my battery, and I'm like, hang on, like, are you tired? I don't know, like, I love it. For once, I'm the one that can like lead. It's great. I'm not the back.
It's funny because then you sit there and you get back to the hotel. Like I always relate it back to Gina will like check her Fitbit.
Yeah.
And she's like, fucking hell, I've done 50,000 steps, and I'm like, Jesus.
So funny. It's like I'm not tired. I'm ready to keep going. And like then like, so
I'm dying.
Yeah, for once I can shop and enjoy it. Like
it is, but then I think that's the other thing as well. With that's why I do like my front wheel attachment of it being able to come off, because shops, like particularly foreign shops, never are great when it comes to wheelchairs. So like, you can make yourself as slim and as maneuverable as possible. That would be another bit of advice I'd give.
That's what I love about my eFix though, because my eFix, like the turning circle, I'm literally just like like spin on a spot, like a little like it's so good. But she is a delicate babe, and when she breaks, she likes to break big. But yeah, no, it is amazing though.
On that note, I remember like when I first got my Firefly, I stupidly, proper male stupidity, was like, oh yeah, I can turn really quickly at full speed, and it just went. That was it.
No.
Game over. Out the sideways door, going, oh, this is gonna hurt.
No.
But yeah.
I feel like everyone's had like big falls out. It's so fine. I feel like it's part of like character building, isn't it?
My worst one has to be, we were in Cornwall, and I'd only recently got the Firefly, and basically I'd got over a bump that shouldn't have caused any problems, but I think my balance was just off, or whatever happened. And basically I'd gone over this bump and it threw me off, and then I've gone like, yeah, I'm fine, Gina, I'm fine, don't worry about it. And then Gina's like, Charlie, you're gonna fall off a cliff. And I'm
Oh
like,
my god.
what do you mean? And then I looked, it's
Oh my
that
God,
classic
stop it.
cartoon moment of looking to your left and going,
Oh,
fucking hell, that's a long way down.
Ha ha,
Yep.
old lady. Ha ha, she's old. Ha 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 ha, she's old. Might die soon. Ha ha ha, she's gonna die. Those ones bad.
Trishy's quite dark occasionally.
I live opposite elderly people residential homes, so those
I
ones are
see.
quite frequent. Really unfortunate.
Fair
for
enough.
them.
That makes sense.
Lovely people though. Ha ha. Sorry about that.
That's all right. What was you were saying, like, obviously you love your gadgets, you love a new piece of disability tech. What are some of the ones you've got? Like, what are some of your favourites? What is on your wish list? Yeah.
So no, Trish always interrupts, by the way, so I'm sorry that she interrupted you.
That's all good.
I'm like, I'll be
It's all
listening
good.
and then she interrupts and I'm like, what were we talking about? So oh my gosh, my wish list is so long it's ridiculous. So I really want a Magic Mobility all-terrain wheelchair. It's the X8. There's a video on my page of me using it. I cried when I used it. I was such a loser.
I think I have seen. Yeah.
It gets me onto Brighton Beach. It's incredible. So is the price, but it's so good. It's got like tilt and space, which would be amazing for my pots. And yeah, it gets onto Brighton Beach. It's like the only chair that I've managed to get onto Brighton Beach this far. Don't know if you know Brighton that well, but it's obviously like
Yep, I was there last weekend.
Oh, you were, weren't you? You came down.
Yeah.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was good. My friend's at uni there, so like I always try to pop down whenever I can.
Brighton or Sussex?
Brighton.
Okay, good. We would have had an argument otherwise. No, I'm joking. But yeah, the X8, incredible. I'm looking to try the new trekking wheels from Triride. I'm going to give them a go, see how they are, which is going to be exciting. I struggle with the front attachments because of my dodgy joints.
Yep, that makes sense.
But yeah, I'm going to give them a go. Oh my gosh, what else is on my list? My brain. I've got a free wheel on the front of my chair, which is so good for getting me up and down curbs. I'm looking to get a rigid chair, but because I've got a folding chair, but I have really narrow doorways. But I've just bought a WAV that I'm planning to convert into a camper van, which is really exciting. So I just need to think about whether a rigid chair is going to fit.
That's fair.
Yeah, very excited about the camper WAV situation. Don't know why I'm acting like I can do any DIY at all, but
that's all right. If there's will, there's a way, and you can always find friends.
If there's wheels, there's a way. Ha 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 ha.
That is very true.
Another old dude. So funny.
But on that note of Brighton, like that is the one thing that popped into my head when you were like, "Oh, I live in Brighton." And I'm like, Brighton plus wheelchair.
Hilly. Yeah. So there's like 2 chair power attachments that can cope with the hills here. There's like a Benoit. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah,
Benoit, amazing. And then my eFix. They're like the only 2 that I can manage to get up the hills where I live. Like, wow, kind of thing. Yeah. Obviously, there's like other power chairs and things, but that was like that would fold down and get into my car.
I have to say, from experience, the Firefly can pretty much cope with anything. The only thing you have to be aware of is you lean forward. Lean forward is your best friend. If you can lean forward, you're pretty much good. Yeah. It didn't cope with Brighton Beach, but that's neither here nor there.
I feel like if you're coping with Brighton Beach, you can get on the moon. Do you know what I mean? Like, when someone says it's an all-terrain wheelchair, like, I'm like, is it an all-terrain wheelchair that can get on Brighton Beach? Because that is like a miracle. It's crazy. But
on that note, like, this is clearly a personal question, so I forgive me, listeners, like going, right, why are we talking about this? But basically, I've come to the conclusion that it's really hard to find accessible hotels, accommodation in Brighton. Also, like, don't get me started on the whole price thing. That's ridiculous in itself. God. But yeah.
Renting down here, like, you're paying London prices. Like, it's extortionate. Like, it's crazy. Like, hotels and stuff. But, like, it's basically London by the sea. Like, everything is crazy. Like,
I would argue as well. It's more expensive than London because I was looking.
yeah.
I was literally looking for a day, and it was like 200 quid for the day, and I was going, what?
Honestly, like crazy. I used to have this conversation as a student all the time because when you're a student and you live in London, you get London student loan. Whereas when you're in Brighton, you're paying London prices for student accommodation, but you're not getting London student loan. Whereas my friends up north were paying like £200 for their accommodation or £400 for their accommodation, and we were paying like 800, whatever was stupid we were paying.
Yeah.
And it's like we're getting the same amount of money a month, and they're paying like £3 for a beer, and we're paying like 12 or something stupid. 12, but like it's, I don't know, like a tenner. Like it's crazy.
I do know what you mean.
But yeah, hotels and stuff. There are a few good accessible hotels and stuff. I'm a bit of a Brighton tour guide. I've made like a couple of accessible guides.
I'll have to drop you a text after,
let me know
the
next
recording and be like, well, where we got to go.
Yeah,
definitely. Definitely.
Good cafes and restaurants and stuff like that.
I'm always a sucker for canoops or coops or whatever you want to call
chocolates.
it.
Yeah.
Major sucker for that. Where else do we normally go? I can't think of them now, but yeah, there are plenty of places in Brighton where I'm like, it's got a little bit of. Oh, that's the other one. It's gone out of my head, but yeah, there are there's loads.
Oh my gosh,
there are loads that I always go to.
So good for people with allergies and stuff like that as well here.
Yes,
everyone's just great here. I love Brighton.
Talking about coming back to you a little more, can you tell us a bit more about, I can't remember the name of the disability, but you said that you have to go through part-time paralysis every now and again.
Yeah.
How's that all come about?
Fun. So it's called hemiplegic. Fuck your mum, yeah. It's called it's my mum's fault. It's called it's your mum's fault. It's called it's your mum's fault. Sorry.
It's alright.
It's called hemiplegic migraines. My mum gets them too. That's why she's saying it's my mum's fault.
Fair enough. Mother. That makes sense.
It's basically familial hemiplegic migraines, which means they're like family, like if that means you get it in family, but there's like two types. Essentially, it's like a really strange type of migraine, rare, weird type of migraine, which presents like a stroke. So often the first time people have them, they think they're having a stroke, and you get like a facial droop, and like your arm will do like the typical like strokey kind of situation, and my leg will go, and it will just be one side of your body, and you can't speak. My tongue will go like funky, and it's literally just a migraine. But really blooming strange. And really scary, to be honest. They're like my worst thing I get. I don't like them at all. And they just happen like bam out of nowhere, kind of thing, and can be on either side of the body. But yeah, my mum gets them as well. But yeah, they're really enjoyable, as you can imagine.
So how often, obviously I know it's like whenever, but how often do you have to battle with that?
So I'm on like there's a whole story to this. I'm on some medication that's helping like stop them at the moment, which has helped a lot, because I was getting them a lot more frequently, like sort of every couple of weeks maybe, whereas now I get them like monthly maybe, so it's not as bad.
Oh wow, so quite regularly.
Yeah, and they're gonna look into, there's like 3 options. You can get Botox, which is really cool, a nerve block, or like self-injections to like help stop it. I'm gonna stab my own brains out. I'm gonna go for the self-injections, but yeah, it's all a bit complicated with like you have to go for a big long pathway of like try this medication, and like some of them got stupid side effects, and then it's like, oh, you can't take this one with this one, and all of that. So yeah, I've got referred around the whole world, and like, you know what the NHS is kind of falling apart a little bit at the moment, bless them. So yeah, that's kind of that.
That's fair enough. So I know a bit about POTS, but for those that don't know, tell us a bit more about POTS and the impact of that.
So POTS is like a I can sing. POTS like tea. POTS is, oh my god, calm down. Showing off. POTS is like a comorbidity of EDS. So a lot of people with POTS will have like dysautonomia, dysautonomia, or postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which basically means my blood pressure is really low and my heart rate's really high. So my heart rate has gone up to like 190 something before, which is obviously stupidly high. But I've just been laying in bed doing nothing. And like my Apple Watch will be like, keep going with your workout. And I'll be like, wow, lying in my bed doing absolutely nothing. Like, this workout is crazy. So you can imagine like walking or like running, like running as if I run. But any sort of crazy activity, my body's like, no thanks. Postural changes, so that's the postural orthostatics, that's the postural part. So if I bent down really quickly and then stood up, my blood pressure would go like, whoa. And so I just have to be really careful with like changing quickly, changing position really quickly. Everyone's first question is always like, oh my god, how do you drive if you pass out all the time? For me, I always say you're not bending down and then jumping out really quick when you're driving. So it's not postural changes. To touch wood, to this day I've never had an issue with that. And then my PAs kind of help with all sorts with that, kind of like picking things up off the floor, carrying things that are heavy. I struggle a lot with temperature changes. So your body struggles to like regulate its temperature. So prime example, this morning I was in the shower bath for too long than my body liked. So I just went like purple everywhere and blood pooling. It's like all the blood rushes to your feet.
Wow.
And I get like purple lips and like dilated pupils. And my body was like, I'm gonna pass out now in the bath because that's really safe. So that's kind of why I have care support for like safety and stuff. But yeah, it kind of affects everything in your body because it's like all your autonomic nervous system. But yeah, salt, your body likes salt as well, which is interesting.
Oh wow!
I think it's because it raises your blood pressure. There's the vessels around your heart, something like that.
Yeah, there is something to do with that, and also I think as well it's there's a lot of recommendations with salt, particularly with disabled people. Like I get recommended it because of cramps. That's something recommended for me.
And they always say to wear leggings, like compression leggings, helps with the blood flow.
Yep, I with my condition, I hate my blood flow on my lower half of the body. Like I am my lower half is perpetually cold.
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, it's like regulating body temperatures just in general. It's just a nightmare. Like, I will be like absolutely like dripping in sweat but freezing cold, and then like the opposite, and it's just a pain, like such a pain. It's like my body's just a drama queen. I feel like that's what EDS does. Like,
I get that.
I'll be like, it'll be hot outside, so I'll be like, whew, it's hot. And everyone's like, yeah, it's hot. And I'm like, no, like, I am hot.
It's hot. It's hot.
Yeah.
On the note, like you said, you got care support. How I'm also asking this for the wider community, but also for me as well. How did that whole acceptance come around with that in terms of opening yourself up to care, and like what's the journey been like with that? Because for me, like I'm fairly lucky that there's a very minimal level of support.
That was really funny because my carer just walked in and gave me my medication. Literally, she's like, hey. Oh no, and I dropped it. Sorry, 30 seconds.
That's all right. It's all good.
This is the day in the life of being disabled. Yeah, sort of was that acceptance with having care.
Yeah, like acceptance with having care, and also like what it's like, because I think the stereotype that comes with it is like it's like dealing with an old person, whereas actually like I know a couple of guys that got carers, and it's like almost an extension friend wise. Like once you get a good relationship with them, it's
absolutely. I mean, when I first someone first suggested like having PAs or care to me, I was like, they're not wearing uniform, like I'm not having a carer, like I don't need someone to wipe my bum, thanks. And like all of that, whereas like now, like it's like so different. Like my friends feel like they've just got another one of our friends at the table, and that's exactly what I wanted. Like, honestly, it makes me emotional sometimes, like when I'm out with my friends and I see like my PA and my friend walk off, and I'm like, oh, like it's so cute, they get on, like it's so lovely. Like, even just things like, oh yeah, why is this bitch turned up? Sorry. even just things like, you know, carers don't just fulfill like what you might imagine like a typical care role kind of thing. Yeah. So like my PAs support me with absolutely everything, like from being able to get out the house, like taking my wheelchair out, to like, you know, personal care and stuff, but also like being able to see my friends and family. And I mean, you kind of just find a like system and routine that works for you. And you know, I could talk about care stuff for ages, but it's kind of like you're in a relationship. I mean, I know I've never been in a relationship, so I could be really wrong, but like for me, it feels like you've got like this like little like system. It's kind of like you have to communicate really well with each other, otherwise it's not going to work. Like I need them to tell me how they're feeling, like I tell them how I'm feeling. Like I don't know, even like the first time being naked in front of them, like I felt so shy, whereas like now I'm like, woo, like do you know what I mean, like all that sort of thing. And it's like, you know, helping me with admin, like all of that stuff. It's like you make it work, and now it just like feels like they're like my left arm, do you know what I mean?
So I mean, it's very, like you say, it's very similar in relationship wise, as particularly because Gina won't mind me saying, I mean, she prefers the term PA, so I'll use that. She obviously, Gina is like my primary PA and primary care in terms of like what I need day to day. The only thing I know, obviously, there's some legality issues within having a partner and then having a carer, but that is one of the things that's making me consider it in terms of when we eventually move out. It's then taking the strain off of G, you know, so I'm not too not I'm quite independent as an individual myself, but taking that sort of reliance off of her in terms of if she wants to go out with the girls for a weekend, I can go, actually, do you know what, I can get someone in. And it's hard because then on the flip side of that, I've got friends and stuff that are probably more than happy to support with that. But as you say, it's that element of the more personal care. The whole seeing you naked is kind of like, okay, that's a little bit awkward.
But like the thing is, like literally, like the first, like you can do things to make things like not as awkward. So like the first few times I showered, for example, I like showered in a bikini, and then like now I'm like, the minute I wrote a blog post the other day, but like the minute like the girls had seen me like be sick and like poop myself, I was like, they've seen it all, like it's so fine. Do you know what I mean? But like you can hire friends as PAs, like it doesn't have to be like a family member. So in the past, my housemate was my PA, and like he literally like would like help me with my washing, and he'd cook my meals for me and stuff like that. And it was like stuff that he would have done anyway, but I would feel really guilty him doing it for me, but he got paid for it. So it was kind of like, you know, if Gina wanted to go away and she felt funny about leaving you, or you felt bad because you wanted her to go away, and your friend would be like, oh, it's all right, I'll pop round, or your parents were like, oh, I'll pop and, you know, I'll whatever, you know, whatever it is, just as an example. Your friend could come round and you wouldn't be like, oh, I feel bad, or, you know, you're going to go out for drinks with your mate and you'd be like, oh, can you undo this bottle for me, which is nothing. They would do it anyway, but they're getting paid to do it. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I think the crazy thing is I've got a good friend of mine. I won't out him because of what it is, but like he is completely comfortable with his mates like helping him with personal care stuff, and I'm like, dude, I'd love to get to that level of like, look, because the thing is, what for me, like I don't necessarily need support with personal care. It just makes it quicker sometimes.
Oh no, literally. But it's not, doesn't even have to be personal care. So I've got a friend who is insured on my car. We've been friends since college. She is incredible, love her so much. And when I had no care, she was down as my PA. And whenever she came to visit me in Brighton, she would stay for like a week, and she would like do all my washing. She would cook me meals, drive me wherever I needed to be driven to, take me to appointments, blah, 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 blah. Friends would do that anyway because they're amazing people, and that's the sort of friend you need in your life. But I wouldn't feel like I'm sponging off my friend. She's getting paid for it. The council are paying for it. They're supporting it. That's what care is for. And if we go on a night out, she's going to see my bum when we're in the toilet anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, not to put it frank, but it's true. Like, you know. So you know, and you go to the pub and have a drink with your friends. You go to the pub and have a drink with your carer. It's just if I passed out, I would feel bad putting the responsibility on my friend to look after me. I would rather know that there's someone there dedicated to be on Lauren duty, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I feel like that's a cultural thing that people take on themselves whenever you go out with friends. Like, you can always see when someone's having far too much fun.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh, okay, I've got to pull back a little bit because this is going in a direction.
Exactly. And it's like, I've always been that person, so like adjusting to like not be that person is like, oh my god, because like it's difficult. But like now I'm like, don't worry, because my PAs will look after all of us. It's all good. We can have fun.
To be honest, that's what I always say about Gina. Gina is such a like group mum. She is such a group.
I love that.
Mum. Yeah, group mum. Like, she'll look after everyone, and I'm like, Gina. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Like, we all survived before you came in, so it's all good.
Yeah,
we will be okay.
I love that. One angel, bless her. Love that. Yeah, no, but, I couldn't like recommend it more honestly. And like Live You, the company that's supporting me, are just like, they work specifically with young people. Like, they like young themselves. Like, they get it. Like, it's run by disabled people. Like, it's run by a guy called Dan and his PA Sam. And they're just, couldn't recommend them enough. They're amazing.
I think that's the big thing as well. It's like, obviously, don't get me wrong, I've met older people that are great fun. I've met young people that are great fun. Like, age isn't really a thing, but then also, like you say, it's having that carer that like slots into your life very well and is able to like not, as you say, not make you feel awkward. And like, especially as a young person, you don't want to feel different. Like, you
never want it to feel like you've got a carer there with you. Yeah. Whereas, like, you know, there was a time the other week where my like carer went, PA, whatever you want to call her, went into the shop to go and buy alcohol with my friend when we were like on the way home from somewhere because I didn't feel well. And it was like, I don't think like we were literally, we just gone out for dinner. I didn't feel well, so my carer went with my friend to go and buy alcohol. And I was like, can you imagine if I had like a 60-year-old carer? Like, that wouldn't happen. The carer would be like, oh, you don't feel well, let's go to bed. Like, do you know what I mean? Whereas I just had a nap in the car for a bit. He went off. Yeah. And it was fine. Or like, you know, we had like a little art night, which was really cute. And it was like, never in like before, I didn't even leave the house because I didn't have care support, you know? So it's just, it's such a game changer. And like, I have someone to put my socks on for me so I don't pass out when I'm putting my socks on. So it's great.
It's always good to have someone to put your socks on.
You know what I
mean? I can relate
literally,
to that. I can relate to that so much.
While you're down there, thanks.
Yeah. It's always nice as well. And it sounds really weird, but like, when if you've got really cold feet and the person's got really warm hands, that's a whole experience.
Oh no. Both have really cold hands, to be fair, so it's kind of nice when I have a headache. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
Who needs to wear ice packs?
Although, I feel like that, for me, that's a thing with physios. Why the fuck do physios always have really cold hands?
Yeah. I actually don't like physio very much because they always come out in like bruises because of my EDS.
Yeah.
I'm like very easy bruiser. Someone was like, actually, not really a fan of that. Thanks.
I don't think anyone's, no offence to any physios out there.
We don't like
think anyone's a fan of physio. Yeah.
No offence to physios, but we don't like you. No, I'm joking. Sure, you're lovely. Sure, your mum likes you.
They are. I'm sure they do. But yeah, no, I think as well, like, it's that whole thing with physios where it's like, it's something you have to do and I can't be bothered. I feel like that's the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm just conscious of time. So I'm going to hit you with the last question, which is, what is one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Everyone should try peas and vinegar.
Actually, yeah, I agree with that. I had that once with fish and chips, and it does work. It works.
You know when your peas accidentally get vinegar on from when you've had chips?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I get you. I get you. I know. I agree. Unpopular opinion, but I do agree.
Yeah, unpopular opinion, but everyone should have peas and vinegar. Just a bowl of it together. Nice.
That is true.
I'm sure
that would be good. Although
but I just...
That is Gina's worst nightmare. She hates peas.
Really?
Yeah, not a fan of peas.
Sorry. So rude.
It's alright. It's alright. It's all good. What about just because that was quite a quick one? What is if you got one? What is one disability one that winds you
you're
up?
gonna say that. What was the question? What's the politically correct?
It's basically something that like either you have a really strong view on that or you really disagree with. So like
non-disabled people don't have a non-disabled people don't have shouldn't non now I'm ticking. Non-disabled people shouldn't have a say in what happens to disabled people. Is that right? Non-disabled people shouldn't have a say in oh my god, my words aren't coming out. Non-disabled people shouldn't have a say on disability rights. Is that a word?
That's a
unpopular.
Yeah, that works. That works.
I don't know if that's
Although
gonna,
one country,
is that going to start causing problems?
No, I'm just gonna contra it to dig a little bit deeper. What about if the individual has experience of a disabled person?
Okay.
So, for example, like if my sister don't get me wrong, my sister has some weird and wacky views because she's only been exposed to me. But if someone's got lived experience of someone with a disability,
I'm a special
would
needs
you feel
mom.
comfortable?
Okay, so you can be an ally, but you shouldn't speak for. In my opinion. So like I completely I love all my non-disabled friends loads, and I think that they have learned so much from like non-disabled siblings that from disabled siblings that they've got, and from me and going out and about. But I don't think until you are disabled you will never understand what it's like to be disabled, therefore you could not run a talk on what it's like to be disabled.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
I'm special needs mom.
That is going to be a great ending. That is brilliant.
I'm a special needs mom.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Lauren. It's been so good, and I feel like we could talk for hours. So we'll definitely do an episode 2. That's all right. So am I. That's why I set up a podcast.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, we'll definitely do an episode 2. But I always give my guests a chance to plug themselves, let people know what they're working on, what they want people to follow, and sort of where to find you. So here's your opportunity to plug away.
Cute. Follow me on everything. I am at A Ticker's Guide to Life. That's ATICCERS, and then the word guide, and then the word to, and then life. I've got a website and Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, but I don't really use it. And I run a really cute little disability group called Little Poorly Brighton. It's at A Little Poorly Brighton. Yeah.
That's one thing I'm really annoyed that we didn't get onto, so that's why we're going to do an episode 2.
That's so fine.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Not Quite Podcast. Please make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram to get regular updates about the podcast.